All right, Keith, let's get right into it with a lot of huge news coming up. The Premier League obviously starting this weekend. Everton, it seems like this deal back in a bit of a different situation now. John Textor has come back in. How complicated can this deal possibly be due to his Crystal Palace shares, and how that stops him from potentially being a part of this takeover for Everton?
Well, it seems that everybody's been commenting that it's almost impossible for him to do this while he's still got 45% of Palace. But then again, I look at this in probably a different way. We've just seen how UEFA have managed to get round the rules for Man City and Man United about joint club ownership. And what they did there was they put the shares into an escrow and let them be managed by another group to make sure that the beneficial owner, in this case Ratcliffe or the Man City group, did not have control over them. So I don't see any reason why John Textor couldn't put his Crystal Palace shares into an escrow type account, have them controlled by a third party. In the other cases I mentioned, that was by a law firm. So there's no reason why he could then show that he's no longer having control over those shares, which would be the main issue. I'm sure there could be some sort of resolution made around that sort of area as to how Texter could actually manage both transactions.
And how does that exactly work? Is there's no conflict of interest there? To me, that seems like it's a little bit unexpected to have somebody who could potentially even have 10% of two different clubs in the same league.
No, sure, but the whole point here is that you have no control over the shareholding, you have no say in the club, you have absolutely no control whatsoever in the actual businesses of the club, particularly, of course, in footballing matters. And so, if that was clear and distinct and legally enforceable, then I think that's one possible route. Those shares could be held, as I say, in escrow until any particular sale is completed. So that's just one option. So I don't think it's that complicated in that case. I think obviously if he was to carry on being the beneficial owner and having control over those shares, that's a different matter.
For sure, it's basically like a pure investment, if you will, in terms of just if you were buying a stock on the market.
Yeah, it's like putting it into a blind trust, basically, where you have actually no control over the whole situation. So that could be one solution if Texter is as interested as he says he is in the Everton transaction.
For sure, and that remains to be seen as we've seen a lot of people kind of come in and out on that Everton transaction. Everton does have claim that they put together a commercial deal with Aramark to help cater all the food at the new stadium. How important is it for Everton to continue to get these deals done as they finish the new stadium ahead of actually moving over there for the 25-26 season? Do they need that money kind of tied up prior to the move?
Yeah, absolutely. It's important to have those future revenue streams booked in as quickly as possible. That'll be a big chunk of the forecast revenues coming up for the new stadium. And although the football won't commence until this time next year at the stadium, there are going to be a lot of events between Christmas and August next year. So there will be a lot of business going on, a lot of test events, and they have to get the systems up and running and really ready to go when the football season starts. So although it's been a long time coming and everybody would have hoped that Everton could have got the revenues earlier in from football, certainly they're going to have a great chance to make sure that everything is absolutely spot on and there are no dress rehearsals needed, that all the test events are done and the whole operation becomes very slick. I mean, Aramark have got a big reputation around the world for being a good operator. They've also been very innovative in some of the things they've done. I know that they're going to see the value in having a new stadium like Everton's in their stable of events. And so, look, I think it's going to be a great deal for Everton. I'm sure the numbers will be very good. I haven't seen the detail yet, but I'm sure it will be very good. I've negotiated a number of these catering contracts over the years, and it will be a substantial part of the new revenue streams. Now, I'd expect the Everton Stadium to probably throw off between 50 and 60 million of new revenue increase, which is, still not massive in terms of, the Premier League these days. But nevertheless, if Everton hadn't got this new revenue increase, they'd be dropping further and further and further behind every year. So it's very important. This keeps them in the top 10 quite easily. And as I say, catering and Aramark, great brand, great partner. I think that's a very positive sign to get going quickly.
For sure. And a little bit more on potentially a negative thing for Everton. It has been reported this week that they will begin the Premier League season with the threat of another points deduction, as the Premier League alleges that the club breached its PSR rules by an extra £6.5 million for the 22-23 season. What's the likelihood of this points deduction, and why is this coming up now?
Well, this actually was a hangover from the last judgment when, for whatever reason, and I don't still fully understand why the Commission could not have handled that in the last round of hearings. But they said they needed more time to discuss the accounting principles behind the interest that was paid on the new stadium. Now, Everton's auditors have cleared this, and the Premier League are now really challenging those auditors and the accounting principles used on that. So it's not really new news, but certainly this was always going to be around at the start of the season. And to me, it should be something that could have been resolved much quicker. It's really a case of classification of interest payments. I don't know why it's taken so long, but obviously there must be some detail behind it that I'm not aware of. But yes, it is potentially a danger for Everton. If they are found guilty on this, it can extend beyond the one interest payment, because it will affect following seasons as well. So potentially it could be another big points deduction. I'm thinking somewhere in the region of about 6 points. Hopefully they'll come to a resolution and they can see that the accounting principles have been followed. I do think there's a very high chance of this being thrown out, and so I'm hopeful that will be the case. But nevertheless, there is definitely a chance there could be a points deduction if the club is found guilty. I'm not party to the actual way they've been accounted for, but I do think that the chances, from my opinion, is that the auditors will be able to challenge this with the Premier League, and the club should be okay.